Rebecca Fleetwood Hession, welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I've been following you for several years now. You're a local entrepreneur here in Indianapolis and really helping women to thrive. It's amazing and super inspiring. And I saw you doing a live Instagram just a few days ago. And I was like, boom, we need to be on a podcast. Let's do this. Let's inspire people. We are currently in January 2023, and it's time to help women rise up, right?
Well, and I just have to give the background because I think it's a great lesson as well. My mantra for this year is to listen to those nudges. And I had this nudge to go live the other day, and my marketing firm has been encouraging me to do more of that. And it feels awkward to do anything that you don't do that often. Even though I'm on social media constantly doing other things, I was like, okay. So I pushed the live and I was, just trying to get comfortable doing it. And you and my marketing person, Claire, were the only two I think that showed up. But look what it's brought, because both of us have been following each other for a long time. And you said, hey, let's do a podcast. So I just want to encourage people, if you get the nudge, even if it feels crazy, do it, because look what it's brought us today.
100%. And I think that is just a message that any woman, regardless if you're an entrepreneur or not, should just lean in on, just trust the nudges, listen to the voices, however you want to frame that, but just go for it. And, life really is short. I don't want to be doom and gloom, but life is short, and it's too short for us to be sitting on the sidelines. Like, we are made for so much more. And it's just kind of getting out of the boat, getting into the water, getting a little uncomfortable, and you just never know what might come of it. So
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So let's talk, we're going to talk about money today, because that's another thing that women and women entrepreneurs in general, I think, tend to not talk enough about. And I feel almost like there's a stigma, Rebecca, about money, women talking about money. I don't know how it's still there, but it is. And
it absolutely is.
Yes, right. So why do you think that is? Like, what do you see women that you're working with? Like, is this a thing with them still? Because I still struggle with it personally.
It's one of the things I work on with my coaching clients is the money mindset and their money-making model for their company or their business. So two categories, but I will absolutely say it is a much more interesting, challenging thing for women than men. For example, I also coach men, and it's not uncommon for me if a gentleman will reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for a coach. We have a conversation, and the majority of the time, if it's a match, they will say yes. And my full rate, go. When I have the same conversation with a woman, she will say, let me think about it. Let me talk to my husband. Let me look at this. Let me look at that. Let me overanalyze this completely. And so I've started to call that out, because until I call it out, we think that's humble and normal and good business practice. And I'm not saying you should just blindly say yes to everything that someone offers you, but this is a situation where someone has sought out my services. They've vetted me out to believe that I'm someone that could help them, and we're having a call, but getting them to spend the money on anything related to themselves, especially, is really interesting. Because if I had that same conversation with a woman and it was about a lacrosse camp for their child, it would be that plus an extra set of gear and shoes and the logo of the company as a bonus for that child, right? So I think it's largely aimed at spending money on ourselves to develop ourselves. And I don't pretend to know where it comes from, but you could easily tie it into a lot of studies about we were raised to be nice and kind and humble, and it just, hits us in that place of this feels too ego, this feels too much, and we've got to stop.
Yeah. I find women doing that when they're thinking about investing in in my monthly membership. I try to make it, like a low cost. It's not a high ticket thing. So it's like their health. But I also see women, because I used to work with just entrepreneurs. I see them having that same issue when it comes to investing in their business. So it's not just one or the other, it's just investing in ourselves in general. And one of the biggest things that I have found as somebody who's super into personal development and entrepreneurship for well over a decade now, if I am not investing in myself consistently, whether that is just time or money, I'm not growing. I'm simply stagnant and I'm not making progress. I'm not getting closer to who I really want to become. And the investment piece is a missing piece. And I think it's so funny that you mentioned, let me just sit here and overanalyze it, because that's simply what we do. And then at the end of the day, so many people end up saying no to themselves. And it really seriously breaks my heart. It's like I wake up every day to try to help people realize their worth. I think there's a self-worth issue, a very deep self-worth issue for some people there, where they just don't think that they're worthy of investing in.
It's very true. And even the high-powered women that I work with that are executives in companies, I have an exercise that I use with my clients, and it's also in the book I wrote called Write Your Own Story. And I ask people to think of the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word money. So let's do it with you. When I say money, what's the first word that comes into your mind?
Freedom. There's many things, but there's like a picture that comes to my mind.
Tell me about that.
I get a picture. It's like kind of like I don't know, like a scene almost, like, or different scenes. It's me out on our farm, actually having a house. Like, we don't have a house there yet. It's my son running around, it's beautiful crops growing. It's me living in a healthy body and feeling energetic. It's also me in a warm place whenever I want to be there. Like, it's vivid and it's clear. And I know what I want. I want health for my family. I want, I know what I want to wear. I know what I want to feel like. I know, all of those things. And we have to get super clear with that. But okay, keep telling me, because you're coaching me on this money thing. That's what I see. That's my vision.
So that's a representation of a very abundant mindset about money. You see money as fuel for your dreams and your visions and your aspirations for your life.
Yes.
That's the way that money is intended to work. Mm-hmm. That money is fuel. It's a tool. It is, in fact, money is a neutral and necessary commodity. Mm-hmm. So necessary, we can't do life without money. We can't have our house, our family, our businesses, our churches, our schools, anything without funding it. So it's necessary to live our lives. Yes. And it's also neutral. Money gets its value from the story that we place on it. So my favorite example comes from a pastor that I follow, Dr. Jolynn Whitaker, and she taught me years ago, you can take the same amount of money and start a strip club or a nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's the story that we give money, how we want to use it as a commodity. So if you take a bunch of money and put it into the hands of someone that wants to do good with it, like you're picturing, that's a beautiful, abundant thing. If you take a bit of money and give it to someone who has evil intent, that is also a very different story. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not talking about, I'm a very Jesus-loving girl, the love of money. I'm talking about how we use our money, the story of money, because money is a tool. Now, when I ask that question to others, oftentimes the first word that I'll hear is fear, not enough, scared. And that goes back to some experience or some way that we were raised talking or not talking about money that has set our mindset, our story about money in a scarcity type of way. And so if that's your money mindset, you're not going to use money as the tool to fuel like you could with an abundant mindset. So I'll give you an example of that. So one of my clients, the first word that came to mind when she heard the word money, sorry for listeners if this offends, was asshole. And we dug into it because she grew up in a very low socioeconomic part of the community that she lived in. A lot of workers that were just struggling to make ends meet was her family, and also mine. So I grew up in a very factory farm, blue collar environment. And so money was talked about, that anybody that had money was that word I just said. They would sit at the dinner table and they would say, well, look at so-and-so over there building that new house. What a hole, right? Look at your uncle out there buying that new car. Who does he think he is? And so the stigma about money was, if you had too much, it made you a bad person. And now here she was, is a CEO of a company, still battling with how she sees money, how she spends money, which then impacts how you invest in yourself, how you invest in your business. So the very first place to look at how we take care of ourselves and invest ourselves is, how do we see money? What's our mindset about money? And we may need to write a new story about how we view money in order to get to that point of abundance that you enjoy.
Yeah. But you also mentioned fear. And you also mentioned, what you do with your money. Another thing that I see with my vision with money is, all it really is just a means for me to continue growing my business. And when I can continue growing my business or businesses, that's going to help more people, right?
Yes.
It's like, you have to understand that side of things, and kind of take you out of it and think about, what can it do for others if you were to actually step into like your capabilities, right?
Yep.
And that fear piece though, we all have it. We all have different types of fears, whether, that's showing up for a live, or whether that's just asking somebody to purchase our product or service, or whatever it might be. One of my deepest fears is the fear of how good it can be, which is something that I've been battling with. And a lot of people have asked me, like, well, what does that mean? And I think I just had a literal recollection when you were just saying, what you said before this, like, part of my story, and I think a lot of us are not leaning into our past story enough and trying to kind of understand and unpack, like, why we might have the decisions that we have, or make the decisions that we make about business and life. But my dad lost his job on 9/11, and things were going pretty great for our family up until that point financially. And sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this, I know my dad won't, but anyways, like that is a true story. And so things were really good, but then they were not. Right. So I think I have this really deep fear inside that I know that I can create a really great life, not just for my family, but for so many other people, if I would just not stop myself. But that fear deep down inside, probably that I'll lose it all, is very
You're exactly right, because we're always running off of old patterns of belief in our subconscious unless we choose to disrupt them. Yes. So the great news is, as humans, we have the power to disrupt those old patterns, but first we have to recognize them as what's running the show. And so you being aware of that now, you can say to yourself, I know that was my childhood story, my family story, but it doesn't have to be my story. Yes. And how can I write my own story and re-script the pattern? And the way that you do that is by acknowledging that it is a pattern and then working to rewrite it. it's all of us are running off of old scripts, and many of us are running off of a money mindset pattern and script from the past that no longer serves us. And especially many of my clients grew up in very poor situations. And so they've decided, I'm never going to be the poor little girl again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great, but we also have to look at the story that we're creating. Are we creating this business and this thing out of fear, or are we creating it out of serving? So in my book, I talk about the 3 keys to rise and thrive, and it's story, money, and rhythm. So story comes first. Who am I? What's my story? That's those patterns and those beliefs that I have, my unique gifts and talents. But then also, who am I serving? What other human am I serving? Our stories need to collide in service with our businesses. Mm-hmm. So for you, you have a very specific kind of client that you're serving, that you're thinking about. Gosh, when I make more money, I get to serve more of them. And that brings your heart joy and happiness. And that's where that abundance comes from. Now you just have to deal with that script that says, "Ooh, I don't want it to run out. I don't want it to fall apart." Just believing that that's a story of the past. That's not the story of your future.
Yeah. That's something that I have my clients, like for their wellness. They write the next chapter of their book. They have to go through a storyboard.
Yes.
And they have to go through those steps, but then they get to write the next chapter. And like I was saying, like how, they write down where they are, like, where are they living? What does it smell like? How does it feel in their body? Because we're really talking, about wellness and their next chapter of their body, and kind of trying to envision that. And I will say, Rebecca, a lot of them actually they have a lot of epiphanies from their story, activity, that's for sure. But several of them have a hard time even getting past today. I talk a lot about future vision. I'm like, what is your future vision? And I get it for many of us, we say like, well, it's God's plan, right? Like, but we are also very much in control of what's happening on a day-to-day, right? And
God says, write your vision and make it plain.
There you
it's
go.
very clear in the Bible that
go.
That's what he's expecting us to do.
Yes. And I think, a lot of women, they're sitting on the sidelines, but a lot of them are also having a lot of trouble even creating a vision. Because maybe they're feeling so bad right now, like they're just not feeling well enough to even think that they're going to feel better or have the energy or be able to show up for their family or eat right or whatever they're really wanting to do with their wellness. What tips do you have for people, not just women, that are struggling with that even getting to the next day, to the next chapter?
Oftentimes women are just responding to everyone else's needs.
Yes.
And putting their own needs aside and forgetting that they have needs, and saying things like, well, it feels selfish to take care of myself. And I would say that it's actually selfish not to take care of yourself and have your own dreams, because what are you doing to inspire those people that are looking to you, that you love and care about most? If all you're doing is responding to their needs and not modeling for them the kind of life that you desire for them, then that's, to me, the most selfish thing that you could be doing, is not showing them that there is this beautiful space that you can create for yourself in your life. And that, to me, is the real service, is let me show you what this could be.
That's so powerful. This just kind of service. Speaking of service, where did you decide? When did you decide? At one point, like, was there a pivotal time in your life that you decided, hey, I want to help people thrive. I want to help people step into their power?
Well, I had the opportunity to work in careers prior to me starting my own business that were stepping stones to this. So if I look back over the last 30 years of my career, I can see how each job, each struggle, each joy, each win has all been tied to the work that I do now. But I didn't become really aware of that until probably early 2000s. I all of a sudden just got more intentional about thinking about development. And largely it was me working for a company called FranklinCovey, which is based largely on Dr. Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And so I got to work with Stephen before he passed, and many colleagues, that we were just very in tune to the power of our intentions and mindset. And through doing that work, I was able to apply that to myself. And over a 20-year career there, I discovered that while I loved my work with and for them, I wanted more creativity and more options for the way that I did that. So I opted to start my own business to continue doing that kind of work.
Wow. A big leap of faith. And that's incredible.
Big.
That was a side note. I really wanted to know that about you and how you kind of just made that decision. Going back to what we're talking about today, which is money, let's kind of wrap this up with, I really want to know Rebecca's tips on making money in general for I work with women, for people in general. What do you think people need to do in terms of starting a plan for making money? Do they need to say, hey, I want to make this amount of money and work backwards? Or where do you help people start with that? I mean, I know you're working with high level people. So,
well,
if they wanted to be an entrepreneur.
The principles apply to any money making, whether it's a lemonade stand with your kids or the executive of a firm. There are two aspects of this. As I said, story and money. And when you tie those together, that's where we get rhythm in the 3 keys from my book, Write Your Own Story. Story is what I said earlier about who am I? What gifts and talents do I have to bring to the world? And how can I use them to serve? So I believe we start with story. And we look at who do I want to serve? So with my gifts and talents, here's this business I want to start. You are very nature and earth and how we fuel our bodies in that way. So you have all of this knowledge and joy and interest in this. That's your uniqueness. That's what you want to bring into the world. You then go out and search for the people you want to serve with your gifts, talents, and abilities. So you go attract those people that want what you have. And you ask yourself, how do I want to serve these people? You work with predominantly women. You have an online community. You have these things that you offer to them. So you already have this human to human exchange. That's where we start. Then you say, okay, what's the money making model? How do I bring money into this business? How do I decide to spend money to fuel more customers or fuel more products and services? So we very much want to look first at who am I serving? And then how do I want to serve them? And so then you absolutely can do some of those practices. You can say, okay, if I want to make $50,000 this year, break that down. How much is that a month? Well, how much would I charge for this? So how much is that per customer, or how much is that per subscription? So back into it, but always ask yourself, well, what am I providing in service that people want to pay for to make that amount of money?
Yes. Okay. So story. Let's just end here with story. And my son just walked into the room. I'm sorry.
No worries. Hi, bud.
This is real life entrepreneurship as a mom at home. Hi, sweetie. I'll be with you in just a second. Love you. I'll be with you. Okay. So, Rebecca, we're going to get to edit this one out. Oh, I lost my question. No worries. Give me a second.
We said we're going to talk about story. We'll end it on something.
Story. Okay. Okay, so how much of your story do you think you need to implement into your business? Do you think that story needs to be shared to have a successful business? Or do you think that you just need to know your story to help that fuel your business? Does that make sense?
Yes. The way that you attract the customers that you are meant to have is by sharing your story.
Mm-hmm. It's so powerful.
People buy from a person. People buy on emotion. They validate it on facts. So they need to know that I can trust this person with my money. Whether you're talking about big business or entrepreneurial endeavors, people want to know who they're buying from. You're seeing a large movement into a lot more entrepreneurial, small business, because people are more interested, especially post 2020, in more human to human contact and less trusting of big business where they don't really know what's happening with their money.
Right. Wow. That's so powerful. And I work with women that are wanting to grow. Like, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have my wellness, and then I have my network marketing business. And I tell my network marketing business teammates that facts tell, but stories sell. And you and what you teach could probably help them and help me. I need to read your book.
Yes, please.
So much, because I mean, this is stepping into our confidence. This is stepping into our next chapter. This is being our true authentic self. Like, it's not just about sharing a product. It's about telling your story. It's about sharing the transformation that you get. It's about sharing the way that it makes you feel. And regardless if you're selling a product or a service, I think that story piece is so powerful, which is what you're all about. And I'm so thankful that you share all of your wisdom.
Well, I'll even give you an example as we wrap up today. When I was in corporate sales and I was selling consulting and training solutions, I was working with a client and I had spent a lot of time listening and understanding his issues and challenges and how I could help serve him with my products and services. And I believe this particular deal was around $40,000 that he was going to spend with me on this particular challenge that I was helping him solve. He said to me, and I will never forget it, this was probably 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. He said, Rebecca, I'm not sure that this is going to work. But what I am sure of is that I trust you and that I see your excitement in wanting to work with us and do this work. And I have to believe that you wouldn't have that kind of joy and excitement in something that you didn't believe in.
Wow. Yes. We have to let the feelings come out a little bit. Yeah. I think that in a world that we're living in, super polarizing right now, we just need to lean in on what makes us humans the same. And that is that we're real people going through struggles, going through life. And the more raw and authentic that we can be, the better it will be for everyone and for our businesses. So, wow.
I talk about that a lot in the book, that our business needs and our human needs are both important, but they're very different. The business needs to control, measure, and optimize. We need goals and we need to know our money-making model. But humans, we're personal, emotional, and social. And so when we meet those human needs for each other, that earns us the right to then exchange money for products and services.
So powerful. We might have to have a second episode, but okay, Rebecca, thank you so much. I want to know, how can we find you? How can we stay connected?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Instagram, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession. I do a fair amount there, and LinkedIn as well. And my website is wethrive.life. And my book is on Amazon. It's audiobook as well as paper or hardback or paperback. And I would love to stay connected in some way.
I'm totally getting the audiobook today. I was going to say, I hope that you have that, because that's the way that I roll when I'm batch cooking. So,
it just came out. The audio version just came out. So grab it.
Fabulous. So good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your words of wisdom today and your insight, and just for sharing space with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's good to be here.